Tonight, an alleged thief crashes through glass at the CCC, trying to escape custody after a daring daylight robbery. Strong criticism for a magistrate who ordered a cow thief to go to church. A human rights advocate says the judgment was out of line. And Minister Guy Joseph drudges up some dirt on a former colleague after he calls into a live show that Joseph appeared on. We have the details of these stories and more coming up.
This is the Hot 7 Nightly News with Lovelace and Amy Joseph.
Good night. It is Wednesday, the 29th of January 2020. Welcome to the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. We're on Flow Channel 117. The broadcast is also being simulcast on Kiss FM Radio. You can watch via our website. It's www.caribbeanhottv.com or on our free Caribbean Hot FM mobile app. I'm Lovely Saint Amy Joseph. Thank you for joining us. A daring daylight robbery, a swift capture, an even more daring attempt at an escape and a recapture. That's the story that unfolded in the city on Wednesday morning. The city police had their hands filled in trying to keep a nabbed, alleged cell phone thief in custody. The operations of the CCC were temporarily brought to a halt after the alleged thief crashed through the glass of the building, trying to escape custody. Hot 7 cameras were on scene to capture the aftermath of the incident. Shaka Wooding reports.
According to eyewitness accounts, the incident unfolded at approximately 10:30 a.m., where passers-by on a busy city street were alarmed to the sound of breaking glass. Upon investigation, what met their eyes was a young man bursting through the closed doors of the Castries Constituency Council, with security officers not far behind. The success of his bolt to freedom, however, was short-lived, as he was once again apprehended the second his now cut-ridden body hit the sidewalk pavement.
Well, he came from the inside of the office and he rushed. He pushed the door and the gas burst. They feel they make a citizen arrest on him. So they brought him inside, but he tried to escape. To me, them things are making no sense. But that is what they're doing already. It's they're thieving people things. So that is what have to happen to them. He get arrested and he could have get hurt there, you know.
The mayor's office has since issued an official statement on the incident. Delivered by Press and Communications Manager Jason Hollingseed, the assailant is said to have been apprehended by security personnel after stealing a cell phone and, upon being confined, made a brazen attempt to flee custody.
What I could say about the situation downstairs was that the individual stole a phone this morning. He was apprehended by one of our security personnel. He was locked up downstairs. He was able to get the cell open and try to escape.
Hollingseed says he was most surprised due to the young age of the man involved in the incident. He adds no security personnel were injured during the escape attempt, and only minor cuts and bruises were identified on the assailant.
There was no injuries. What I could see is that the culprit, he just had, some slight cuts on about his arm, and that's it. So we're trying to get the situation rectified in trying to secure the door. We have contacted a company to try to replace it.
The operations of the CCC were continued later during the day after the glass had been cleaned up. For Hot 7 News, I am Jaka Wooding.
Thank you, Shaka. The family of Victor Morris has issued an open invitation to members of the public to stand in solidarity to celebrate the life of their slain loved one and make a call for justice to be served.
The death of Victor Morris has come as a blow to many, even those who knew him as just a pleasant vendor who they bought nuts or maybe dried fruits from. Morris was also a councillor with the Castries Constituency Council CCC and served as the former chairman of the UWP Castries South Constituency branch. His brother-in-law, Franklin Bray, says his family wants to honor his life and come together with the people whose lives he touched to pray together and to offer comfort to each other in a vigil on Thursday night.
We want to cement in a national way, in a very prayerful way, his contribution to this country, to the many people that he served in different ways. So we will be there at that time so that we can have this prayer vigil. So we're asking that the entire nation come out. As many persons as possible do come out and provide support to the family.
67-year-old Victor Morris was shot near his home in Balata on the 3rd of November 2019. Bray says there are many questions surrounding his violent death. The family is confident that in time, the answers will be revealed. As a family impacted by crime and violence, we asked about the experience of seeking justice in such matters and the progress of the case. Bray had this to say.
What I can say now is that we appreciate the fact that there is a justice system. Does it need recalibrating? The answer is yes. Does it have to speak to stronger application of legislation to enforce justice for those types of behaviors in the country? Yes. Are we satisfied? Answer is no. Should the wheels of justice move faster? The answer is yes. And I don't think I speak only for the Morris family, only for us. I think for the many families that have experienced those violent deaths, those types of injustices, I think it's very important that they be present at this vigil to make a statement, not just because there is another vigil, because we don't need another vigil. This one should be the very last vigil. We should find a way of having the government and the powers that be, the system that exists, to speak to and to enforce those laws that help keep a country together.
The vigil in honor of Victor Morris will be held at Constitution Park on Thursday, the 30th of January 2020 from 6 p.m.
Parliamentary Representative for Vieux Fort South, Dr. Kenny Anthony, has declined an invitation from the Water and Sewage Authority, WASCO, to attend a sword-turning ceremony for its southern headquarters on Thursday, the 30th of January. After thanking WASCO for its invitation, Dr. Anthony told the general manager that his investigations indicate that up to the present time, no drawings have been submitted to the Development Control Authority, DCA, for the proposed building. Dr. Anthony said it is deeply troubling and regrettable that WASCO has chosen to emulate the actions of the government, which holds sword-turning ceremonies for proposed projects when no approved plans for such projects exist. Dr. Anthony noted in a press statement that he had, quote, seen no invitation to tender for the construction of the proposed building, end quote. Dr. Anthony also expressed his displeasure at the site selected for the building. It is the site selected by the previous SLP government to construct an administrative center. Dr. Anthony says he has no doubt that WASCO could have found an alternative site for its building, but instead chose to follow the lead of the government of St. Lucia and, like it, engage in a decision which he calls vindictive and provocative. He stated that he will have no part in what he called misbehavior. The nation was left laughing out loud after a magistrate ordered a Bexon thief to attend church every Sunday as part of his sentence when he appeared in court for stealing a cow valued at $4,000. However, one person who is not laughing is human rights advocate Bennett Charles. Charles said when he heard about the judgment, he was left baffled and confused over whether the state can actually demand that someone attend a particular religious service.
And that is very scary. Understanding that the state gives you the right to religious freedom and religious belief and freedom of expression, it is a blatant disregard for the right of the individual. While, yes, a crime was committed, and I think within the laws there are set punishments for that, but for a judge or a magistrate to tell someone that you need to attend church service as part of the punishment, I think is certainly a disrespect. I think too often when we speak about human rights here in St. Lucia, it is compared to issues of LGBT or prison, and that's why too often lawyers like human rights lawyers like Mary Francis really gets a lashing from the public because they don't understand the issue.
He believes that there was a serious abuse of power in this matter.
I'm worried that maybe this individual had no representation in court and that the magistrate or judge wanted to strut the power. Again, too often persons who don't receive the proper representation through the judicial system, usually get the short end of the stick. And that is a very sad situation when something like that happens. People may laugh at it because, a cow thief, you're telling him to go to church, but they don't understand the implications it has when the judicial system can blatantly disrespect the rights of an individual.
Charles also questioned how religion could be weaponized and used as a form of punishment.
When you're telling me that it's like you're going to send someone somewhere they're not going to enjoy. And so therefore you're saying that, okay, religion and freedom of expression when it comes to religious belief is a bad thing. So therefore as your punishment, it's like, this deviance sort of thing. It's like as your punishment, I will commit you to something I know you don't like or that is not good for you. And so it's very weird. And I think this judge or magistrate, whoever he or she was, needs some sort of I don't know, there needs to be a serious conversation with that.
The human rights advocate says cases like these highlight an issue where people who believe they are above the law are able to impose freely on the human rights of others as they see fit. Now, the human rights advocate is also calling for the old adage of St. Lucia being a Christian society to be removed, as he says this has not been the case for a long time. He says the false notion is keeping the nation from advancing as it should in a number of vital areas, including law and human rights. Rochelle Gonzalez tells us more.
On the 6th of January 2020, Raise Your Voice President Catherine Seelys made this statement, speaking out against St. Lucia receiving poor representation at the United Nations Conference due to a popular misconception.
The perception is St. Lucia is on the religious right side, because they don't want to talk about LGBTQI rights. They don't want to talk about women's rights. They don't talk about girls' rights. They say a family is a nuclear family, a man, woman, and a child. They say they don't want to talk about abortion rights. They don't want to talk about anything which will give us our rights. And then you understand why people get away with these things, because our parliamentarians, instead of representing the general view of St. Lucian, they represent their personal views and beliefs, and then they take it on the international stage, and people view us as religious fundamentalists in this 248 square mile island.
On Tuesday afternoon, human rights advocate Bennett Charles echoed the sentiment, calling for the Christian Society label to be dropped. Charles's call came after a recent ruling by a local magistrate ordering a cow thief to attend Sunday church services as part of his punishment. The advocate said this was a direct infringement on the human rights of the individual, as well as an abuse of power by the magistrate.
Too often we hear the statement that we're a Christian society, and that is no longer true. St. Lucia is a very diverse religious society. We've seen an influx of Muslims. We've seen an influx of people of Oriental belief who believe strongly in Buddhism. Although our constitution and our criminal codes may have had a Christian foundation in this setting up and using the Bible maybe as to establish that, but we must understand that we are a very diverse society right now, and one has to be careful when they use the religious belief, to interpret the law and punish someone.
Charles said the fact that religion is still being used as a tool to punish individuals is scary.
We've heard a number of times the Minister of External Affairs. I think she is very much Catholic oriented, and that's her right to express her religious belief. But at no point should your personal religious belief be used to govern, the political structure of a country. You need to understand where the government policy is and where your personal spiritual and religious belief is. And I think if it has reached the courts, that is something that we need to relook and understand, when magistrates and judges make decisions, are they making decisions based solely on the law, or are they making it based on their own personal bias and their religious belief?
Charles said the religious aspect instilled in the law books need to be reviewed in order to reduce discrimination as well as the impact of violence against vulnerable persons in society. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I'm Rochelle Gonzalez.
Choiseul MP Bradley Felix happily announced the end of years of hardship for fisherfolk in his constituency. Felix says his call for help was finally answered by a group from Japan who are poised to commence work on the Choiseul fishing pond, which has for years caused hardship for people going out to and returning from their daily catch.
The fisherfolk who utilize the Choiseul fishing pond are about to get the gift of the decade, as their livelihoods are soon to be drastically improved, courtesy of their parliamentary representative and the Japanese government. Bradley Felix excitedly announced the approval and impending commencement of the project for improvement of coastal fisheries development in St. Lucia. The project is soon to commence in his constituency Choiseul, where fisherfolk have been plagued with a myriad of issues which hinder and in some cases crippled their livelihoods for years.
I'm extremely excited that we had members from the Japanese delegation visiting Choiseul yesterday, the fish pond in Choiseul, to explain to our fisher folk, of the plans to solve the long outstanding problem we've had with regards to the blockage. They have shown what the solution is going to be. It's going to be something that will be worked out over the next 2.5 years in terms of the whole tendering, design, and construction work.
Felix said whilst the intricacies of the long-term plans are being finalized, the short-term ones are already set to commence during the first quarter of the year.
But in the meantime, there are some short-term measures that they have instituted to help the fishermen so that we do not have that problem where fishermen have to push their boats early in the morning or when they come back with their catch, to have that sort of hustle. So we're very happy with the Japanese government through JICA for what they have proposed. And the fisher folks, they have indicated they will be very patient because at least they're happy now that something is finally going to be done to take care of the problem that they've had for a very, very long time.
The MP stated that the project will carry a hefty cost, however, it will come with job opportunities.
Two things are going to happen. They're going to be building a second groin, okay, and also what is called a submerged groin. And obviously these things have a lot of technical areas that would have to be addressed. And also, you can well imagine there will be quite a bit of heavy machinery involved, and these things though come cheap. So I think there will be opportunities for local contractors and owners of heavy equipment. At the end of the day, I think the satisfaction I will get out of it is that the amount of sun that we have to continuously remove from the area will now go back to rebuilding our shoreline, which is one of the consequences of trying to assist the fishermen with their plight.
The placement of the short-term countermeasures will commence in April. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I'm Rochelle Gonzalez.
Thank you, Rochelle. This is the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. Still to come, Dr. Ernest Hilaire questions the transparency of the government on the St. Jude project. The Press Relations Office of the St. Lucia Basketball Federation is calling for the growing issue of chastising St. Lucians mourning the death of Kobe Bryant to stop. And Jamaica dispels reports of confirmed new coronavirus on the island, but issues travel advisories for China. That and more coming up.